The day I found my sister's diary was the day forgiveness tasted like ash in my mouth. That's the sentence that has stayed with me, like a bruise beneath my skin. Because, baby, I wish I could tell you forgiveness is neat, sweet, and wrapped in a church ribbon.
But mine?
Mine came with dust on my fingers and betrayal inked in blue ballpoint pen. It happened on a Sunday afternoon, one of those quiet southern Sundays where the sun looks like it's moving in slow motion across the sky. The house smelled like lemon floor cleaner and old wood. I had spent the whole morning scrubbing because cleaning calms me, especially when my heart is trying to steady itself. And let me tell you, my heart had been through a lot. My sister, Lila, had just moved back into my life 2 months earlier. After 3 years of silence, 3 years of hurt, 3 years of unanswered texts, ignored birthdays, missed holidays, and excuses that never added up. But that afternoon, that still, heavy, too silent afternoon, I found something I wasn't supposed to. Something that made me question the meaning of sisterhood, forgiveness, and whether blood really mattered when the heart was bleeding. I was changing the sheets in the guest room, humming along to an old Anita Baker song, when I saw a little navy blue book tucked halfway under the mattress. At first, I thought it was one of those devotional journals folks carried around. You know the kind, soft quotes about courage and faith embossed on the cover. But this one was plain. Plain but familiar. Lila had kept journals since we were 12. She wrote everything down, dreams, fears, crushes, like words were her oxygen. And back then, she used to read parts to me, laughing at her own dramatic teenage thoughts. Back when we were still a we. I picked it up, meaning to set it on her dresser. That was all. I had no intention of snooping. My mama raised me better than that. But the second I touched it, something in me froze. Like the book pulsed. Like it recognized me. I don't know what made me open it. Curiosity? Fear? Instinct? Or maybe it was that quiet voice in the back of my soul saying, "Child, you're not done healing yet. And this house already knows it." I flipped open to a random page. And the first sentence I read was my name. Not just my name, my secrets. The things I had whispered to her when we reconnected. The things I told her in confidence, thinking reconciliation meant safety. The things I thought I could finally unload from my chest. Things I had told no one else. My knees weakened. My breath caught. And my fingers trembled against that cheap paper like it was fire. But that moment, that breath where the world shifted, we will get to that later. Because before the betrayal, before that book tore open wounds I thought were stitched, there was love. A complicated love, yes. A fragile love, absolutely. But still love. And to understand why that diary hit me like a punch, you need to know what life looked like before it. My name is Mariah. I'm 41 years old, divorced, mother of one teenage boy who lives half his life rolling his eyes at me. I work as a senior administrative assistant at a small insurance office downtown, the kind of job that pays the bills, keeps the lights on, and drains your energy by the time you hit your front steps. My days were simple. Wake up. Warm up yesterday's coffee. Fight with my son about leaving towels on the floor.
Clock in at work. Come home.
Cook dinner if I had the strength, microwave a frozen dinner if I didn't. And fall asleep to the sound of cars passing on the highway behind my apartment building. It wasn't exciting, but it was peace. A quiet, lonely kind of peace. The kind that settles after a storm you didn't think you'd survive. And the storm had a name, Lila. My sister was always lightning, bright, unpredictable, too powerful to hold. She was the wild one, the funny one, the kind everybody gravitated toward. But with all that brightness came shadows, jealousy, insecurity, impulsive decisions, and a stubbornness that could break steel. Growing up in Georgia, in a house where love felt conditional and silence was the loudest language, we clung to each other. But clinging becomes suffocating when both people are drowning. 3 years ago, everything between us imploded. It started with money, then spiraled into accusations, then bitterness. But the breaking point? She told one of my deepest secrets to someone she had no business talking to. We argued. We cried. We cut each other with words. We stopped talking.
Just like that.
30-something years of sisterhood gone. So when she reached out again, voice trembling, saying she was trying to turn her life around, you best believe I fought with myself. It took prayer, therapy, and a whole lot of humility before I agreed to meet her for coffee. And seeing her again,
Lord.
her hair was shorter. Her eyes were tired. Her voice softer, like life had finally caught up with her. She apologized genuinely. Cried genuinely. Told me she'd been in a dark place. Told me she missed me. Told me she wanted her sister back. And something in me cracked open. So when she said she needed somewhere to stay for a little while, I said yes. My friends told me I was too forgiving. My therapist told me to set boundaries. My mama told me, children of the same womb always find their way home. Maybe I wanted to believe all three. For 2 months, things were good. Shockingly good. We cooked dinner together, watched movies late into the night, wrapped in one blanket like we used to. Talked about work, life, childhood memories. She helped with groceries, helped with chores, made my son laugh again, something his father barely managed these days. And for the first time in a long time, my home felt full.
Alive. Warm.
I started to think, maybe this is our second chance. Maybe some families break and heal stronger. Maybe some betrayals can be forgiven, truly forgiven. Maybe, just maybe, God was giving us a do-over. I believed that wholeheartedly. Until the day I found her diary. That navy blue book with its frayed edges and bent corners. The one that held every secret I ever told her, like my trust was something she could fold into paragraphs and analyze. But before we get to that moment, before that discovery punched the air out of my lungs, I need to tell you about the small signs I ignored. Because the truth is, the heart feels a storm coming long before the clouds show up. I didn't notice the first sign right away. Or maybe I did and just didn't want to admit it. You know how it is when you're trying to build something fragile, a second chance, a repaired bond, and you tell yourself, don't look too closely, it might crack. That was me with Lila. I was holding our newfound peace like a glass ornament in my palms. But looking back now, the clues were everywhere, soft like whispers, but sharp enough to cut once you knew where to touch. The first came one evening in the kitchen. I had just come home from work, shoulders heavy from a long day of answering phones and typing numbers. I dropped my purse on the counter and kicked off my shoes. Lila was at the stove, stirring a pot of chicken and rice soup, humming off-key to an R&B playlist. My son was nowhere to be found, probably in his room glued to those headphones he pretended made him invisible. Everything felt normal until it didn't. Lila turned toward me, smiling, but something about the smile froze halfway across her face. A stiffening. A flicker. Not enough to be called guilt. But something.
But something.
Hey, she said a little too brightly. You're home early. I answered, dropping a stack of mail on the table. Traffic was lighter than usual. I expected her to go back to stirring. But she didn't. She kept looking at me like she was waiting for a specific sentence to come out of my mouth. Then she asked, how'd your appointment go? Appointment? I frowned. What appointment? Her eyes widened for a split second, but I saw it. Like she had realized she said something she shouldn't have. Oh, I just meant you mentioned running errands today. She forced a laugh. Guess I got mixed up. But here's the thing, I never mentioned errands. Not to her. Not to anyone. A small knot formed in my stomach, but I brushed it aside. People get conversations mixed up all the time, right? No need to make a mountain out of it. We ate dinner. We talked about nothing. Life moved on. Except a little voice in the back of my head said, pay attention. The second sign came a week later. It was around 9 p.m. I was sitting on the couch, folding laundry while watching reruns of Living Single. Lila came out of the bathroom wrapped in her robe, towel on her head like a turban. I expected her to sit and watch with me, like she usually did. Instead, she glanced at my folded clothes, particularly a sweater I hadn't worn in months, and said, you haven't worn that since what was it? Last February? Before you know. Before what? I blinked. I knew exactly what she meant. Before the panic attack. I had told her about that, about how I broke down in the aisle of the grocery store, chest tight, vision blurry, trying to hold on to a bag of frozen peas like it would save my life. A moment I had never told anyone else. A moment I had only shared with her when we started to rebuild our bond. But I had told her that story 2 days after she moved in. 2 days after. So why did she say it like she already knew? I folded another shirt to steady my voice. Funny memory you got there. She froze. Just slightly. Then shrugged. I remember stuff, that's all. But the way she said it, too quick, too defensive, made the air shift just a little. Still, I pushed it away. Truth is, I wanted so badly for us to work. I wanted the sisterhood I thought we could finally have. But the third sign, the one that should have made me sit up straight, came from my son. It was a Saturday morning. He stood at the kitchen counter pouring cereal, eyes still sleepy, hair sticking up on one side. "Mom," he said, not looking at me. "Why was Auntie Lila talking about Dad yesterday?" I paused mid-sip of my coffee. Talking to who? To herself, I guess. He shrugged. I was in the hallway, and I heard her say your name and Dad's name. Something like she didn't get why you still talk about him so much. My heart dropped. I didn't talk about my ex-husband. Not anymore. Not even to her. I had mentioned one thing, that co-parenting with him was hard sometimes. That was it. So why was she talking about him, alone, like there was more to the story? I swallowed. Did she say anything else? Nope. He pushed the cereal aside. It just sounded weird. Like she was, I dunno, practicing.
Practicing.
That word flicked the back of my neck like cold fingers. I forced myself to smile for him. Mama face, the one that had been stitched with strength and survival, but inside something tightened. Was she talking to someone? Talking about me? Repeating things I told her? I reminded myself Lila had changed. She was trying. People deserve grace. Right?
I kept telling myself that.
You don't just cut someone off the moment you see a shadow. Especially not family. But then came the night that sealed everything. The night that made my stomach churn with an instinct I could no longer ignore. It was past midnight. I had fallen asleep on the couch, wrapped in a blanket, TV still glowing faintly. I woke up thirsty. Dry mouth. Dry eyes. That kind of waking where the world feels off balance. I walked to the kitchen for water. And as I passed the guest room, I saw the light under the door.
Nothing strange about that.
Lila stayed up late sometimes. But when I walked past, I heard her voice.
Low.
Urgent. Whispering. I stopped. Pressed my ear to the door. At first, I couldn't make out the words. Then slowly, "I'm trying, okay? But she's not opening up fast enough. No, I already wrote the part about the panic attack. I just need her to tell me more." My breath stilled. My hand tightened on the water glass.
Who was she talking to?
And what was she writing? I stepped back quietly. Maybe she'd been venting to a friend. Maybe it wasn't about me. Maybe I misheard. But deep down,
my soul knew.
Something was already unraveling. Something was being harvested for my private pain. But I didn't push open the door. I didn't ask questions. I walked to the kitchen, drank my water, went to bed, and told myself, "You're imagining things." But imagination doesn't hide diaries under mattresses. Not diaries filled with secrets inked in familiar handwriting. Not diaries that would change everything. It's strange how betrayal never enters the room loudly. It's quiet.
Soft.
Almost polite. Like it wants to give you a chance to turn away before you see the truth. But the truth doesn't care about your peace. Or your healing. Or your need for everything to make sense. It just shows up. And mine came wrapped in that navy blue diary under my sister's mattress. It was a Sunday afternoon. Warm, slow, the kind where the house feels suspended in honey. My son was at his father's place for the weekend. Lila had left early to run errands, wearing that denim jacket she always borrowed without asking, humming like she was floating on air. I should have known. When people hum too much, they're usually hiding something. I was changing the guest room sheets because she had mentioned a stain on them the night before. Something about a spilled smoothie. But when I grabbed the edge of the mattress to lift it, there it was.
A book.
Not placed. Not forgotten.
Hidden.
Something inside me shifted. A sensation like stepping on a stair that isn't there. I stared at it for a long moment, my hand gripping the mattress, my breath suddenly unsteady. It couldn't be hers. Surely, she wouldn't hide something in my house. Surely we had moved past secrets. But the cover. I knew that cover. Same style she used when we were teenagers. Same bend on the top corner where she used to fidget with it. Same navy blue she always said reminded her of the sky right before rain. And just like that sky, mine was about to break open. I picked it up.
Slowly.
Deliberately. Like I was afraid it might burn. It felt heavier than a notebook should feel. Heavier than paper. Heavier than ink. The weight of something I didn't want to know. I sat on the edge of the bed, my heart thumping too loudly in the quiet. All I needed to do was put it back. Pretend I never saw it. Protect the fragile peace we had built. But peace that needs protection from the truth is not peace. It's delusion. And I was tired of deluding myself. My thumb slid the journal open. The first page was harmless, just a date scribbled in her handwriting. The second page wasn't harmless. My name was the first word. Not Dear Diary. Not Today I Feel, but my name, underlined like a headline. Mariah. I skimmed the first sentence. Then the next. Then my entire soul froze. She wrote, "She's still fragile. I can tell. She thinks she hides it well, but she carries the panic from last year like a bruise under her clothes. I just need her to open up a little more, so I can understand the full story." My mouth went dry. She was describing me, analyzing me, like I was a project, not a sister, a subject. I kept reading, even though each line cut deeper. She wants to trust me again, and that's good. But she's still holding back. She hasn't told me everything about the divorce yet. I have pieces, enough to guess, but I'm waiting for her to say it out loud. I felt my vision blur. The divorce. My panic attack. My private fears. I had told her those things in moments of vulnerability, soft, hesitant moments I thought were safe. My fingers tightened on the diary. But it got worse. The next few pages weren't just notes. They were narratives. Stories. My stories. Written by her. Interpreted by her. Twisted by her. She wrote about my breakdown at work last year. The night I cried in my car after my ex-husband's engagement announcement. My insecurities as a mother. The fear I had never dared to speak out loud, that my son might love his father's new family more. She described all of it. In detail. Like she'd been taking mental snapshots of every confession I made and storing them for later. I felt sick. My hands shook so hard I had to put the diary down for a second just to breathe. But something made me pick it back up. Because the next section was titled, Observations. Not thoughts. Not feelings. Observations. Like she was studying me. My chest tightened as I read. She's more emotional when she's tired. That's when she talks freely. Try to keep her up late if she seems guarded. Kitchen conversations work best. I stopped breathing. This wasn't a diary. It was a manual. A strategy guide. On how to harvest my pain. Tears welled up, hot and sudden. My sister, flesh of my flesh, had been gathering my wounds like ingredients in a recipe. But the entry that made me gasp, the one that made my whole world tilt, was written just a week earlier. I could tell by the date. The same night I heard her whispering behind her door. It said, I'm getting closer to understanding her entirely. There are still a few things she hasn't told me. The real reason she kept the divorce quiet for so long, why she never talks about that night in the hospital, and what happened between her and Mama before Mama died. But I'll get it. I have time. And once I have the full picture, maybe I can finally finish the project. Project. The word slapped me across my face.
I read it again. And again.
She wasn't writing for herself. She wasn't writing for healing. She was writing for a project. A purpose I didn't know. A reason she hadn't told me. And suddenly every red flag made sense. Her asking about specific memories. Her pushing certain conversations. Her repeating things I told her. Her whispering late at night. Her observations. My heart pounded painfully. I flipped further. A loose sheet slipped out. A printed email draft. My breath hitched. It looked like a pitch. To an editor. Of a local magazine. The title at the top read, "The Anatomy of a Breakdown. Inside my sister's fall and rise." My hands went cold. My fingertips numb. My sister was planning to write about me. About my worst moments. About my trauma. About things not even my diary held. And she wasn't asking. She wasn't warning. She wasn't even trying to disguise it. She was documenting me.
For a story.
For clout.
For sympathy.
For an audience. I felt something crack inside me. Not loud. Not dramatic. Just a quiet, devastating fracture. The kind that doesn't heal the same way again. At that moment, the front door opened. I heard her voice. Carefree.
Light.
Like she hadn't just broken something sacred. "Raya? You home?" I sat there with the diary in my hands, tears on my cheeks, heart shaking. She walked closer. "Raya? What are you?" Her voice stopped abruptly. She saw the diary. Saw my face. Saw the truth. "Oh," she whispered. "Not guilt. Not sorrow. Not fear. Just,
oh."
And in that tiny, careless sound, I knew everything between us was about to shatter. Lila stood frozen in the doorway, the grocery bag still dangling from her wrist, lettuce peeking out like it too wanted to run from what was about to happen. I didn't move.
Couldn't.
I held the diary the way someone might hold the remains of something precious, carefully, painfully, knowing the damage had already been done. She closed the door behind her slowly, like any sudden sound might set me off. "Mariah," she said softly, her voice dipping into that tone she always used when she was trying to calm a situation. I can explain. There's always an explanation. People who break your trust always have one ready, tucked beneath their tongues like a mint." I didn't say anything. Instead, I placed the diary on the bed beside me. Deliberate. Controlled. Because the storm inside me wasn't loud. It was still.
Too still.
Her eyes darted to it, then back to me. Okay, listen," she started, her hands raised in a small, pacifying gesture. "I know how this looks." "How does it look?" I whispered, finally finding my voice. "To you." She hesitated. And that hesitation told me she hadn't been writing those pages with a guilty conscience. She never expected me to find them. "It looks," she said slowly, "like you think I was doing something wrong." I let out a small, humorless laugh. One of those hollow ones that feels like it escapes all by itself. "You weren't doing something wrong?" I asked. Not loud. Not sharp. Just wounded. She walked forward, step by step, as if approaching a wild animal. "Mariah, I'm a writer." "Don't." I cut in, raising a hand. "Don't make this about your passion. Don't make this creative. Don't make me content." She stopped mid-step. Her face shifted, not guilt, not sorrow, but irritation. A flicker of annoyance, quickly masked. "I wasn't trying to make you content," she said. "I was trying to tell a story. A story about resilience, about strength, about you. That wasn't your story to tell. It is if it helped me heal too." Her voice cracked. And for a moment, we both sat in the truth of that, the part one never acknowledged. She had her own pain, her own bruises, her own need to be seen. But that didn't give her permission to use mine. I took a deep breath. "Why didn't you ask me?" "Because you would have said no," she shot back immediately. "There's your answer," I whispered. She flinched. She sat down across from me on the room's small vanity stool, elbows on her knees, hands clasped. Her light brown eyes were glossy, the way they got whenever she felt trapped. "I wasn't trying to hurt you," she said. I wanted to write something real. Something raw. Something that felt like redemption." "Redemption for who?" I asked. "Me? Or you?" She didn't answer. And in that silence, I finally understood something that had been brewing in the shadows for months. To her, I wasn't a person. I was a vessel. A well she kept dipping her bucket into. She leaned forward. Mariah, you tell everyone else's story. You listen to everybody. You hold everybody together. But no one ever sees what you go through. I thought if I wrote it, it would finally show the world what you survived. The sincerity in her voice was the cruelest part. She genuinely believed she was doing something noble. You don't show the world someone's wounds without asking if they're ready to be seen, I said quietly. Or if they want to be seen at all. Her lip trembled. Okay, yes. I handled it wrong. I know that. But can you understand why I did it? I stood up, not abruptly, just enough to put space between us. No, I said. Because I told you things in confidence. I told you things with the hope we were rebuilding something real. Not so you could dissect me like a science project. She reached out a hand, desperate. Please don't twist this. I'm not twisting anything, I said. The calm in my voice surprised even me. But you did. The room grew quiet, painfully quiet, like even the air didn't want to disturb what was happening. She wiped her cheek. I wasn't going to publish it without your permission. I raised a brow. Lila, I saw the letter. Her breath caught. Her shoulders sagged. I continued. You pitched a story about me. About my breakdown. About Mama. About my marriage. You were ready. I was considering it, she insisted. It wasn't final. You wrote an outline. She swallowed. You sent a draft. Her lips parted slightly. You had a title. Her tears finally fell. I messed up, she whispered. I know.
I'm sorry. I'm so sorry, Raya.
I wanted to matter. I wanted someone to care about what I had to say. I wanted a voice. And so you took mine? She shook her head rapidly.
No.
No, I didn't take your voice, You used it. Those 3 words landed in the room with a weight neither of us was ready for. She used my pain as a bridge for her ambition. She used my trust as a stepping stone for her validation. For the first time in my life, I said slowly, I let you back in. I let you see me, and you weaponized what you saw. Her sobs sounded small, childish almost, like the younger version of her had surfaced. The insecure girl who always felt lesser. The girl who lived in comparison's shadow. But I couldn't carry that version of her anymore. I couldn't save her at the expense of myself. Raya, please, she begged. Please don't give up on me. I'll delete the files. I'll burn the diary. I'll do anything. I shook my head. You don't get to burn something you wrote about me. You don't get that kind of closure. She blinked.
Confused. Lost.
You're leaving, I said gently. Not punishment. Not revenge.
Just a boundary.
She sat straighter. Leaving? As in. You can stay with me after you learn to respect me. But right now, you can't. The truth broke her face into disbelief. You're kicking me out? No. I corrected softly. I'm choosing myself. And that choice, the one I had never dared to make, hung between us like a slow-moving storm. She stared up at me, eyes swollen, chest rising and falling with uneven breaths. Where am I supposed to go? She whispered. I met her gaze, calm, steady, unshaken now. Wherever you can go without hurting me. Amara did not shout. She did not scream. She did not throw things or fall to the floor like a broken woman. Her pain was far too deep for noise. It lived in the kind of silence that shakes the air. And sometimes a woman's silence is the exact moment a man realizes he has already lost her. After the chaos at the ceremony, Amara went home alone. She sat on the edge of the bed she shared with the man who promised her forever, and removed her earrings one by one, her hands trembling slightly. She replayed everything. The whispers at the back of the hall. The matching bracelets. The woman holding his arms. The look of guilt on Chaik's face. The way everyone had known except her. Her chest cracked open with a single truth. I was planning a wedding, but he was planning a double life. She cried until tears turned to exhaustion, and exhaustion turned into numbness. And in that stillness, something inside her shifted. Chaik came home the next morning looking like a man who had wrestled with his own demons all night. Amara, please let me explain. She lifted her eyes slowly. Explain what? How you planned a new future while I planned our wedding. How you let me stand there looking like a fool. Or how you told another woman the same promises you whispered to me. Chaik swallowed hard. He had words, many of them. None made sense. None mattered. Because betrayal isn't undone by explanations. And trust doesn't resurrect itself because someone suddenly becomes honest after being caught. She stood up, took a slow breath, and said the sentence he never expected. I'm not fighting for what you threw away. You can go. No shouting. No bitterness. Just a quiet strength that made him freeze. Later that afternoon, Amara's phone buzzed. A message from the woman. I didn't know about you. He told me he was single. I found out when I saw the wedding pictures online. I just want you to know I never meant to destroy anything. Amara stared at the message for a long time. Then she replied, You didn't destroy my relationship. If it could be stolen, then it was already lost. She put her phone down and felt something she hadn't felt in days. Peace. That evening, Amara packed 2 bags. One with clothes. One with documents, money, and necessities. When Chaik came back home, she met him at the door. I'm not doing this, she said calmly. I refuse to shrink myself for a man who didn't value me. He tried to hold her hand. Amara, please don't leave. I'll change. She stepped back. Maybe you will. Maybe you won't. But I'm choosing me for the first time in a long time. And she walked past him, her head high, her heart bruised, but her spirit unbroken. As she stepped outside, the evening breeze touched her face gently, like a blessing. She whispered to herself, One day I will smile about this. Not because it didn't hurt, but because I survived the hurt. Her phone buzzed again, with messages from friends who had seen the video online. But she didn't care. She was done defending a man who never defended her. Months passed. Not 1. Not 2. 3 full months since Amara walked out of Chaik's life with her dignity packed neatly beside her clothes. By now, her silence was no longer survival. It had become strength. She had healed slowly, carefully, like a woman rebuilding herself from the inside out. She started jogging again. She joined a small women's book club. She finally began the business she had postponed during the wedding planning. She learned to sleep without crying. And most importantly, she rediscovered her smile. Her glow returned, the kind of glow no makeup can create, the glow that comes from finding peace after chaos. And people noticed. One Thursday morning, her phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. She wasn't prepared for what it said. Amara, please, I need to speak with you.
It's about Chaik.
Addis, the side chick. Amara froze for a moment. Why would she be reaching out again? Amara took a deep breath and replied simply, I'm listening. Seconds later, another message came through. Long, shaky, and heavy. I left him. He wasn't only lying to you. He was lying to me too. I found out he has another woman. I'm so sorry you went through all that. I just needed you to know. Amara put her phone down slowly. The room felt suddenly heavier. So it was never just 2 women. There were more. There were layers to the lies she didn't even know about. Yet instead of feeling anger, she felt relief. Because leaving him wasn't a mistake. It was deliverance. Later that afternoon, a mutual friend called her. Amara, have you heard? Heard what? It's Chaik. His business crashed. One of his partners betrayed him. He's been losing money fast. Amara leaned back in her chair. She didn't smile. She didn't celebrate. She didn't say, good for him. She whispered quietly. Everyone reaps something. It wasn't joy she felt. It was closure. Because life has a way of returning lessons to the people who hand them out freely. 3 days later, while preparing her products for delivery, her phone rang again. This time, it was Chaik's mother. Amara, my daughter, please forgive me for calling. But Chaik has been admitted to the hospital. Stress. High blood pressure. He keeps asking for you. Amara closed her eyes. Painful memories flooded back. The betrayal, the humiliation, the heartbreak. But her heart had changed. Not broken. Not bitter. Just wiser. She took a long breath. I'm sorry, Mama. I truly wish him healing, but I cannot go back to that chapter. The woman sighed softly, understanding. My daughter, you have a good heart. God will bless you. And the call ended. That night, Amara stood in front of her bathroom mirror. She examined her reflection, not the makeup, not the clothes, but the woman herself. A woman who survived embarrassment, abandonment, deceit, and heartbreak. A woman who walked away with her dignity, her peace, her future intact. She smiled at her own reflection and whispered, I didn't lose anything. I just made space for better. She turned off the light and walked away from the mirror, a new woman, stepping into a new destiny. I didn't expect to hear from Chike again. Not after everything. Not after the silence I had given him, a silence that spoke louder than any argument ever could. But life, as always, had other plans. It was a quiet Sunday afternoon. The kind of afternoon where the air feels soft, the neighborhood calm, and even the birds seem like they're whispering. I was arranging new stock in my little home office, scented shea butter jars, carefully labeled, carefully sealed, when I heard a knock. A slow, hesitant one. Knock.
Pause. Knock.
My heart recognized it before my ears did. I opened the door, and there he stood.
Chike.
Thinner, paler, eyes dimmer than I ever remembered. Like life had pulled out the fire that used to burn in him. He didn't smile. He didn't pretend. He just breathed out tired. Amara, he said softly. I didn't know where else to go. I didn't step aside. But I didn't shut the door either. I leaned on the doorway, keeping a gentle distance. What do you want, Chike? He swallowed hard. To apologize.
Properly.
Honestly. I lowered my eyes for a second because hearing those words, after everything, stirred something quiet inside me. Not love. Not longing. Just closure I didn't know I still needed. Go ahead, I said. He rubbed his palms together nervously. I failed you, he began. Not just as a fiancé, but as a partner, as a friend. The wind was calm. The world was still. Only his voice trembled. I thought I was hiding one mistake, but I was really hiding my insecurity, my fear of not being enough. I kept chasing attention because it made me feel powerful, important, wanted. He took a deep breath. But losing you, that broke something in me. I didn't speak. I let him pour it out. I've been going to counseling, he added quietly. Trying to understand myself. He looked away as if ashamed. I know I don't deserve forgiveness. And I don't expect you to take me back. I just needed to say it. His voice cracked, not loudly, but in that fragile way a person sounds when they're finally telling the truth. Amara, you were the best thing I ever had. And the worst decision I ever made was treating you like you weren't. That was the moment I realized something. He was grieving. Not me. Not the relationship. But the version of himself he destroyed. And even then, I felt no triumph. Only a quiet, heavy compassion. I sighed gently. Chike, I forgive you, I said. His head snapped up. But forgiveness doesn't mean returning to pain. It just means releasing it. A tear slipped from his eye.
He didn't wipe it.
I understand, he whispered. And I believe he did. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small, folded letter. This is from my closest friend, Kelvin. He wanted me to give it to you. My eyes narrowed. Why would he write to me? You'll see. He placed the letter in my hand, then stepped back, giving me room to breathe. I unfolded it slowly. The handwriting was familiar, sharp, slanted, rushed. Kelvin wrote, Amara, I should have told you sooner. After the breakup, I confronted Chike. I found out that during the time he was trying to win you back, the same woman he cheated with was also threatening to expose more things to you, even things that weren't true. I stepped in because I wanted the truth to be clean for you. He wasn't just wrong, he was lost. I'm writing this because I've watched you handle everything with grace, and I want you to know, none of it was your fault. You were loyal, honest, loving. He just wasn't ready to deserve you. At the end, Kelvin added one line that sat with me for a long time. Some people break you, so you can finally find yourself. My chest tightened. Not in pain. in release. I folded the letter and slipped it into my pocket. "Thank you for coming," I told Chike softly. He nodded once, a deep, humble nod, and walked away slowly. No drama. No begging. No scenes. Just two people finally closing a chapter that had dragged too long. Life has a gentle way of opening new doors when old ones close without noise. 2 months after that visit, I attended a small creative market fair downtown to showcase my new products. I was adjusting a display of mango body butter when someone tapped my shoulder lightly. "Amara?" I turned, and there was Kelvin. The friend. The man who had written the letter. The man whose voice once carried only quiet judgments from afar. He smiled a warm, genuine smile. "I didn't know you'd be here," he said. "I didn't know you came to events like this," I teased. He laughed, an unexpectedly soft, pleasant laugh. We talked. And talked. And talked.
Not about Chike.
Not about betrayal. Not about pain. We talked about life.
Faith.
Forgiveness. The small joys we often overlook.
It wasn't romantic. Not yet.
Not even close. But it was healing. A gentle connection built not on wounds, but on growth. And for the first time in a long while, I felt something quietly bloom inside me. Hope. Not for love. For life. For myself. Sometime later, when I visited my sister and told her everything, she hugged me so tightly I could feel her heartbeat. "You survived it," she whispered into my shoulder. "You survived all of it." And she was right. I did. Not because I'm strong. Not because I'm perfect. Because I finally chose me. And that choice was the beginning of everything beautiful. Healing doesn't come all at once. It doesn't announce itself. It just arrives quietly, like morning light sliding through blinds, soft, gentle, almost unnoticed until suddenly you realize the darkness is gone. That's how it happened for me. In the weeks that followed, I found myself smiling more than I expected. Not because of anyone else. Not because of attention or validation. But because peace had finally taken its rightful place in my life. I woke up earlier, made myself breakfast with calm hands, played soft music as I worked, and sometimes sat on my porch with a cup of ginger tea just to breathe in the morning air. My home didn't feel heavy anymore. My chest didn't carry invisible weights. My nights didn't echo with unanswered questions. I was finally living again. Not surviving. Not patching up wounds. Just living. Kelvin and I crossed paths again. And again. And again. Not by force, by rhythm. He would show up at local events where I sold my products. He would stop by with iced coffee on hot afternoons, always saying, "I figured you forgot to drink something today." Sometimes he stayed just long enough to help me carry boxes. Other times we talked for hours, sitting on the hood of my car under streetlights.
He listened.
Really listened. Not like a man waiting for his turn to speak, but like someone who respected my story. Still, I kept my boundaries. I wasn't ready for love. I wasn't healed enough to give anyone my heart again. And Kelvin never pushed. One evening, as we packed up after a long fair, he said quietly, "Amara, I won't pretend I don't admire the woman you are, but I'll never rush you. Your peace comes first, always." That moment touched a part of me I didn't realize was still tender. Because for once the man wasn't asking me to shrink, bend, or compromise. He was simply showing up with respect. I didn't fall for him. Not quickly. Not suddenly. I grew toward him, slowly, naturally, like a tree leaning toward good sunlight. About a month later, I visited the small lake near my house, the one Chike and I used to go to on Sundays. Except this time, I didn't feel sorrow. I didn't feel anger. I didn't feel betrayal clawing at my chest. I felt nothing but gratitude. Gratitude that his exit made room for my healing. Gratitude that the pain pushed me back into my own arms. Gratitude that I survived something that once felt unbearable. I sat on the old bench by the water and whispered, "Thank you, God, for removing what wasn't meant for me." And just like that, I felt something unhook inside me. Some last, lingering thread of old hurt. I was free.
Truly free.
3 weeks later, Chike called again just once. Not to beg.
Not to cry.
Not to confess something new.
Just to say,
Amara, thank you for forgiving me. I'm working on becoming a better man. I hope someday you find someone who treats you the way you deserve. I'm grateful for you. And for the first time ever, his voice sounded sincere. I smiled, not sadly, not bitterly. I wish you peace, Chike, I said. And I meant it. When I hung up, the past closed behind me like a door I no longer needed to open. One quiet morning, as I arranged new products on my shelf, Kelvin knocked on my door. Morning, he said, holding a small potted plant with purple flowers. What's this? I asked, laughing. A peace lily, he replied. Thought your home should have something alive to match the way you've been blooming. I didn't know whether to blush or smile. So I did both. We talked, and as he watered the plant on my shelf, he said gently, You know, healing looks beautiful on you. And I realized for the first time in years, my heart didn't flinch. It didn't hide. It didn't feel scared. It simply opened, just a little, like a window cracked for fresh air. And that small opening was enough. Because healing isn't the end of the story. It's the beginning of a better one. Months passed. My business grew. My peace deepened. My smile became natural again. And one evening, while sitting on my balcony, watching the warm city lights flicker below, I whispered a truth I had earned. Forgiveness is not about who hurt you. It's about reclaiming who you were before the hurt. I forgave my sister. I forgave Chike. I forgave myself most of all. And forgiveness didn't mean I reopened old doors. It simply meant I walked out of them with my head held high. My story didn't end in reunion. It didn't end in revenge. It ended in rebirth. A quiet rebirth. A dignified rebirth. A peaceful rebirth. The kind a woman creates for herself when she finally chooses her worth. If you want, I can now write the final audience reflection, the signature closing Annie Mae style message asking the viewers an emotional question and encouraging comments and engagement. Just say, family. Life has a quiet way of showing us who belongs in our story and who is only meant to be a lesson along the way. And sometimes, the hardest kind of forgiveness is the one we give ourselves. But when we finally let go, peace comes in like a soft morning breeze. Tell me, if you found a diary filled with your own secrets, written by someone you loved, what would you do? I truly want to hear your heart in the comments. If this story touched you, don't forget to support your girl by liking, sharing, and subscribing to Voice of Mrs. Addison, where we heal, learn, and grow together, one story at a time.